Hey Mark, did you see the last week's show got a lot of comments?
It got a hell of a lot of comments. It's because we did the flat earth, and
Yes.
every time we do that we get all kinds of people talking about, yes, the earth is flat, and no, don't be silly, the earth is definitely not flat. And it just went on forever, didn't it? And it's still going.
Yes, apparently we're part of the NASA conspiracy.
Yes, of course.
We're waiting for George Soros's money, and Warner Brothers want to hire us.
Yeah, and we're more than likely Freemasons as well.
Yes.
But I took down some of these, the more interesting ones. I mean, like I said, it's still going, these threads. But this chap here, Nagual Chris 2, now he was responding to somebody who was saying, that the Earth is definitely a globe. And he says, wow, you are an imbecile. Heliocentrism is a religion, all caps. That is your church, you buffoon. You worship at the altar of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy. You know, whatever he says is scientific because his name, ha ha ha. Blind faith in stories refuted by science is a religion. That is heliocentrism. If you think you live on a spinning ball, you're a cult member even if you are too dumb to realize it.
Yes. Okay, let's just take one bit. Blind faith in stories refuted by science is a religion. And actually, maybe so. But none of this heliocentrism, as he called it, has been refuted by science.
No,
so.
it's proven on a daily basis. Not that anyone is going out to prove it.
Exactly. And you shouldn't believe something just because certain people say it. But if someone's an expert in their field, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, you have to give it more weight. You have to have some trust, because we can't all become experts in every area. So he's proven in his field.
Well, I think the thing is, a lot of these science deniers are people who realize they don't really understand science or don't want to understand science, so they come up with this word scientism, which we both can't stand.
And I don't think he realises Bill the Nye Science Guy is actually an engineer who just uses that name as a TV personality, as an educator towards science. He wouldn't claim to be an expert in these fields. He would refer you to the experts. So that's a funny one. But yes, heliocentrism.
Yes, heliocentrism. I mean, I can imagine that word in the Middle Ages popping up a lot, but not in 2019.
Yes. So let's go on to the next one.
Roger, along the same line, says this is why critical thinking is needed in life. Before you can disprove something, you have to have an understanding of it. Just saying it's not true does not make it so. In other words, show me the curve.
Well, Roger, if you watched the documentary showed you the curve. The flat earthers showed you the curve right at the end of the documentary.
Yes.
So there you go. But like all flat earthers, they had to make an excuse why they couldn't see it. And it was such a simple showing of the curve, because they had the laser that they couldn't see it, and they said, can you hold it up a bit higher? And you could see it. Yeah,
exactly. Showing that there were three different poles, aren't they, across a lake, I think it was. And the furthest one, there was a laser on top of it or something like that, and it was down so far beneath the curve that they couldn't see it.
Yeah, and he literally only had to lift it up with his arm and they could see it. That is the curvature.
Yeah, and that was flat earthers doing a test. But of course they're going to say, well, we have to do this test again until we get the results that we want.
Yes.
Now, another chap called T. Stew. He says, it's called sea level, not sea curve, airplane, not air ball. With the Earth filled with 71% water, it is scientifically and physically impossible for the Earth we stand on to be a pear-shaped oblate spheroid ball. Learn the physics of water, finding and maintaining its level before you spout nonsense. Show me at which point the convexity of water begins. At which point does sea level turn into sea curve? It's called sea level, not sea curve. I have $100,000 that says the convexity of water does not exist in resting bodies of water, especially the oceans that supply 70% of this water-filled pond. If you or anyone else can provide that info, they're 100,000 K richer.
Well, I hope he's got the money, and I hope he's an honest person, because he will be £100,000 poorer to someone. But this just shows one of the things from the show as well, the documentary as well, is that basically to keep your flat Earth hypothesis, you have to deny gravity,
which they do.
Works as it is. So now just think of that for a moment. They're not only flat earthers, they don't just deny the evidence of science that we live on a globe.
They are agravityists.
Yes, yes, they're gravity denialists, because he doesn't understand, obviously, that gravity, everything of a certain mass, gravity will pull it into a ball. That's why we have planets. And the gravity then will hold the water around.
Every point is being pulled towards the centre of the Earth.
Yes. Now, think of it this way. If there was a flat Earth that was a disc, the way gravity would work is the bulk of the mass of the disc would be towards the centre of the disc.
Yes.
And therefore, that's where the centre of gravity would be. So therefore, say there's a couple of ways you can visualise it. If you went a mile directly up in the air and dropped something down, if you were at the centre of the disc, it would drop dead straight. If the further out towards the edge of the disc you drop, it wouldn't drop straight down. It would drop at an angle towards the centre.
Well, they probably say that it does happen. It's just that nobody's been out towards the edge
obviously,
yet.
Yes.
Or somebody has, but they didn't come back because they died.
So one of the ways we feel gravity is it's harder to climb something than it is just to walk along.
Yes.
That's one of the ways we feel gravity working on us, because it's trying to pull us down the whole time. Now, if we lived on a disc, walking towards the edge of the disc would be harder than walking towards the centre of the disc.
Yep.
So you would walk at different speeds.
Yes.
Without any extra effort whatsoever. Walking towards the centre of the disc would be a lot quicker and a lot easier than walking towards the outside of the disc. And in fact, the closer to the outside of this disc you got, it would get harder and harder, because you'd have even more gravity fighting against you. I'd like to know where anyone's ever been in the world where walking on a flat surface is harder.
I wonder if somebody will say, "Oh yeah, that's happened. That's happened." Yes, so there's your proof.
So if you try to visualise how, just batshit crazy these people are.
Yes.
They have to deny gravity to keep their theory going, and they will.
Well, they redefine gravity, don't they? So
they will get weirder and weirder in their...
It's like all apologetics. They butt up against facts all the time. They have to come up, as you say, with weirder and weirder convolutions to explain their odd take on things.
What I'd like to know from a psychologist is, what is the point when that dam bursts? When their brain just goes, no, stop it. Stop it.
It's when they discover a new conspiracy that's bright and shiny and more interesting.
Yeah.
But in response to the previous person who said that he had £100,000, Hoach27 says, if you really have 100k, why don't you get on a plane to high layers of the atmosphere and see it by yourself, or buy a sailboat and sail around the world or the wall, or take an astronomy trip to go see the different constellations on North and South Hemisphere. Buy a big telescope. Buy a plane. Nah, it's easier to sit on the couch all day eating donuts. Another guy, Larry, says, please forward information on the 100,000k placed in escrow. There will have to be an observer referee. Upon review of escrow account and agreed upon location, I'll travel to the site and, using both classical instruments and methods, collect measurement data that returns the curve of the Earth and radius. Game on? 100,000k in guaranteed escrow? I don't think this is going to happen.
No, but suffice to say that people's cognitive dissonance just shows how far it can go before it snaps, because they know in their brain somewhere that this is all nonsense, but the other side of the brain that likes the nonsense won't let the two meet at this moment in time. They have to deny it. So we'll see. Like I said before, this will disappear like all other conspiracy theories do eventually.
I wonder what the next one is going to be. It's got to be even more stranger than the Earth being flat. Perhaps sun worshippers will re-emerge and start saying, oh yeah, the sun is a god. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah. Well, with climate change, yeah, maybe people will.
Okay, we are going to move on to the stories of the past few weeks. And this one, it's a fairly upsetting one to start with. It comes from the friendlyatheist.pathos.com by Hemant Mehta. A 7-year-old boy was beaten and killed for not memorizing Bible verses. Yep, you heard right, folks. Last October, 7-year-old Ethan Hausschultz was found unresponsive in a relative's home in Wisconsin. Before Ethan died, he was forced to carry a 44-pound log outside his home on a predetermined path. Along the way, a 15-year-old boy named Damien, apparently his brother, physically abused him with a belt or stick. Damien rolled the heavy log across Ethan's chest, stood in him while Ethan was face down in a puddle, and then burying him in a snowbank for more than 20 minutes without a coat or boots on. Ethan eventually died of hypothermia, but those other injuries were extensive. Now, it's not the first time we've heard about people abusing children in the name of God, even killing or drowning their own children because God told them to, or because they thought the world was coming to an end. But this is for something as petty as memorizing a few lines from a book.
This is so tragic, this story. It's just terrible, but it's an example of how any extreme form of religion is so damaging. It's so damaging, and this is no different from any extreme version of any other religion you want to.
I mean, it must be in some case, some kind of pathology that would take over a parent's or sibling's mind to such an extent that the well-being of your own child would take second place.
They've been poisoned to such an extent that they obviously believe it's worth doing this. It's because, I don't know, because they're scared of their God, or what it is, I don't know. Whether they thought the devil was inside him, but it's just absolutely
or just
horrific.
Like in this case, an abusive, controlling parent who was using the religion.
Can be.
Damien said that he had to carry wood for not knowing 13 Bible verses to Father Timothy Hauschild's satisfaction. The punishment was 1 week of carrying wood for 2 hours per day. Timothy picked out the logs, but Damien had to supervise the punishment for the younger children. Another child's death, courtesy of adults who love the Bible more than they loved their child. And we've seen this also in Christian Scientists who won't take their child to the emergency room, instead choosing to pray over them and the child dying.
And this is one of the reasons why I say, don't tell me religion doesn't do any harm.
Absolutely. Well, I want to move on from that one because that's quite an upsetting one, but we couldn't ignore that one. Or almost equally as upsetting, coming from Independent Co. UK, school cancels play about Darwin and evolution after Christian parents complain. I mean, that's enough to get me annoyed, but I shall go on and read the details of this. Several families threatened to withdraw their children from the play, which is aimed at 7 to 11-year-olds, as they felt one of the scenes mocked a bishop involved in a historic debate on evolution. Hartford Manor Primary School, a non-religious community school in a village in Cheshire, here in England, decided to cancel the musical Darwin Rocks and replace it with a less divisive show following the objections. But the decision to cancel the play has provoked anger among another group of parents who argue that it is unacceptable that their children have been denied a valuable learning opportunity. Alan MacDonald, a parent at the school who wants the production to be brought back, said, "It really does feel like a huge step backwards." Mr. MacDonald, who is a scientist in the civil service, added, "I think it is just a thinly veiled attempt to cram religious views over the top of scientific fact, which I think is shameful, personally." What do you think about this one, Neil?
Yeah, it's people using their dogma to have a go at science. I'm glad the other parents are standing up and getting angry about this, because that's what needs to happen. In the past, what used to happen is normal people used to just go, "Oh well, never mind, let's get on with things." And post-Brexit, post-Trump, people are now,
logic.
Yeah, people are now, no, we're not going to let these fundamentalists.
Yes, that is the good thing that does come out of this article. Yes, they think, well, it upsets us, so we're going to complain. Of course, we're religious, we win. Yeah. But there's plenty of people who chimed in on this and said, no, we're not going to put up with this.
Yeah. And like I said, it was Darwin Day, so they were celebrating Darwin and evolution, teaching the kids evolution through a play. Brilliant learning opportunity, and kids should not be denied this just because someone else's fundamentalism. And it's just nonsense. And we need to make sure these things are compulsory in school, so these fanatics can't actually influence other people.
What if it had been something else that they objected to?
Well, it will be. Of course it will be, because in other schools right now in the UK, we've got people campaigning against LGBT being taught at school, issues being taught at school. So it does go into other areas. And before
and they wave their Bible or Quran, and that's it. They say, we don't want to upset them.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take it out of the curriculum.
This needs to be put in law. This needs to be put in law that these things are taught. And fundamentalists, do what you want in your own time. Keep it out of our bloody classrooms.
Yeah, this is the problem, because it should be school facts, religion is beliefs, and never the twain shall meet. But if the religious people think that some of the facts are actually beliefs, then they're going to contest them, and this just makes it such a difficult thing to actually have to surmount.
That's why you have to bring in laws, because even at the moment, in sex education in the UK, parents are allowed to take their kids out of the lessons on religious grounds. So that's denying kids to learn about the facts. Sex education is how to protect themselves.
Yes.
People are not giving their kids the vaccines to stop cervical cancer.
Yes.
So that's, again, often religious things impacting on people's health. So yeah, these things laws need to be changed, and they just needs to be compulsory.
It does indeed.
They'll get over it. They'll get on. They can still go to their church. They can still think whatever they want.
They can protest outside the school they want.
Absolutely they can. But we should never capitulate to them.
Yes. Stephen Evans, CEO of the National Secular Society, said, "We're seeing a worrying trend of parents pressuring head teachers and threatening to withdraw children when teaching doesn't fit their often narrow worldview."
Indeed. Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of which, hundreds rally to preserve right not to vaccinate children amid measles outbreak. And this comes from CBSNews.com. Oh boy, here we go. Olympia, Washington. With more than 50 cases of measles in Washington state, there's been a new push to change the law. Washington is one of 17 states that allow parents to refuse vaccines for philosophical reasons, Neil. But on Friday, hundreds rallied to preserve the right not to vaccinate their children. Lawmakers heard arguments on a proposed bill that would ban the measles vaccine exemption for philosophical reasons. 32 other states have similar laws. Measles is so contagious that an unvaccinated person has a 90% chance of catching the disease if they're near someone who has it. The virus can survive for up to 2 hours in a room where an infected person sneezed. Measles vaccination rates here at the epicenter of the outbreak are now up by 500%. Now, you're married to somebody who's in the medical world. Now, what do you think about all this?
I'm certainly coming around to the point that these people, if a child dies, because people die from measles, in a school that had unvaccinated kids in it, I would be bringing up private prosecutions against their parents for the manslaughter of my child.
Yeah.
And I think the law should be getting in there. I mean, it may be difficult to prove which child actually caught it from, but even so. And some of these people, that would be if my child died.
Yeah.
Some of these people are not vaccinating their kids. Some of their kids are going to die.
Yeah.
And they should be,
for the sake of their philosophy or whatever,
they should be prosecuted for neglect.
You don't have any proof of your philosophy.
I want to see them up on the steps of a courthouse with their solicitor explaining why they let their children die.
Yeah.
Because people need to see this. People don't realise what a serious thing this is, that people actually die from this, children actually die from this. So you're not only putting your own child's life at risk, you're putting other children's lives at risk as well.
Absolutely.
And there has to be consequences for that. We don't allow adults to drive in a car and let their kids sit in the back without seatbelts, without safety chairs for the kids. So why on earth we would prosecute them for that? So why the hell aren't we prosecuting them?
Oh, but if you said, I don't believe in seatbelts for philosophical or religious reasons.
Yeah, you'd probably get away from it these days.
Because there's an agenda amongst people in the car industry who make seatbelts.
Yeah,
and imagine saying, oh, well, we better let them have their way. We're scared of them.
Yeah, it's shocking to me that we are allowing this to happen when in most other areas of life there's laws to protect children. Yet, when it comes to vaccinations, for some reason we let them do whatever they want.
Because some parents, they say, well, we don't know what's in these vaccinations. What if it's something harmful?
Oh, well.
Where's the proof that it's been harmful?
Exactly. Vaccinations.
Other than it hurts a bit when it sticks you.
Vaccinations are proven to save more lives than anything else on the planet ever. So it's just ridiculous nonsense and dangerous nonsense at that.
I think we're seeing people rush to the doctor now because it's real and it's been growing every week. And so folks actually see a real threat, said Washington Secretary of Health John Wiseman. But opponents of this bill still think the measles vaccine is a bigger threat than the disease itself.
Do you consent? No! Are you informed?
Yes! Hundreds rallied to preserve their right not to vaccinate their children. Washington is under a state of emergency after more than 50 cases of measles.
I want to remind you that the MMR vaccine is extremely safe and highly effective.
The last panel would have you believe that if everyone's vaccinated, there won't be measles, and that is not true.
Lawmakers heard arguments on a proposed bill that would ban measles vaccine exemptions for philosophical reasons. 32 other states have similar laws. Do you think you have enough support to get this bill through?
I think our support is growing. Some of the concerns that folks have about the vaccinations is largely debunked.
Measles is so contagious that an unvaccinated person has a 90% chance of catching the disease if they're near someone who has it. The virus can survive for up to 2 hours in a room where an infected person sneezed.
It's like a tinderbox ready to go up in flames.
Measles vaccination rates at the epicenter of the outbreak are now up by 500%.
I think we're seeing people rush to the doctor now because it's real, and it has been growing every week. And so folks actually see the real threat.
But opponents of the bill still think the measles vaccine is a bigger threat than the disease itself. The one thing we know about that is that it is highly contagious.
Yes, it is.
Perhaps one of the most contagious diseases out there.
Yes, it is.
Are you afraid you're putting your child at risk?
No, I don't feel like I'm putting my child at risk. There's nothing that's going to change my mind on this, on that specific vaccination.
The CDC insists the 2-dose measles vaccine is safe and 97% effective. Lawmakers here hope to get the new measure passed by April. Carter Evans, CBS News, Olympia, Washington.
I don't feel I'm putting my child at risk. There's nothing that's going to change my mind on this subject and on that specific vaccination, said Mother Monique Murray. The CDC insists that the 2-dose measles vaccine is safe and 97% effective. Washington lawmakers hope to get the measure passed by April. Now, it'll be interesting to see if we have any comments from people who support Miss Murray there, who says that the vaccine is more dangerous than the disease itself. And I'd like to hear their proof.
Yeah,
please.
There's no evidence that it vastly outweighs, the benefits vastly outweigh any risk. And the risks are minuscule.
Briefly, Neil, where do you think this all came from?
It all started the anti-vax movement in the 80s. Doctor Who was funded to write a scam scientific article claiming that the MMR jab caused autism. It was unfortunately published in the Lancet, later removed. Actually, he lost his license to be a doctor, the guy who wrote this, because he was found to be such a fraud and was being paid to write this article.
Didn't he admit it as well?
Yeah, he admitted it all in court. He got prosecuted. He got prosecuted, admitted it all in court. Unfortunately, by then, the papers had already picked up on it. They'd run with it because they love a scare story. They'd run with it. They scared everyone. And even though he was prosecuted, even though he admitted he was guilty, he is even today working with the Trump government on their side because they are all anti-vaxxers and science deniers. So to this day, that damage
the power
is being
of paranoia.
done, yeah, by this one man. The anti-vax movement didn't exist in the 80s. It wasn't even heard of. It was this one guy who managed to do it.
Yeah, just because it sounds awful enough, folks, doesn't mean that it's probably true. Do your homework. It's not difficult. You all know how to Google.
If you want to see how effective it is, find one of your oldest relatives and ask them if there was any polio when they were kids, if there was TB when they were kids.
Yes.
If they had read stories about smallpox when they were kids.
Good call.
And now we've got rid of smallpox. We've almost got rid of polio, but unfortunately anti-vaxxers in countries like Pakistan and that are refusing to, not only Pakistan, Africa as well, are refusing to vaccinate their kids, and it could come back to the West. TB is on the rise as well.
Yes.
Around the world. And measles as well. And there will be other diseases that will be on the rise because of this. And can you imagine if we have an outbreak of a disease that we haven't really encountered before, It won't take very long for them to get a vaccination together, but if we don't get that vaccine out to people and people get herd immunity quick, it won't be effective. And there will be another massive disease around the corner. It could happen any time.
Yeah, this is 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, folks, so just remember that.
Yeah, it could happen at any time. And if people don't trust the vaccinations that are brought out to save lives, it's going to be devastating.
And on that note, I will see you here again next week.